Well, hello, folks, and welcome to this episode of the Texas Titans podcast. All right, so if you've listened to this show at any time, you know that there is one Texas Titan that I have mentioned multiple times throughout multiple episodes, and that is Phil Burks, the founder and CEO of the Genesis Group of companies. Phil is not only a mentor of mine, he is one of the brightest, most capable, and most accomplished business leaders and entrepreneurs I have ever had the good fortune of knowing. And I'm going to read a section of Phil's website just to give you a quick glimpse and understanding of why I reached out to him almost immediately when this catastrophe hit, because this to me is the model for leadership and how companies will thrive through this incredibly challenging time. It's leaders that have this mindset that will prevail and their employees will prosper and benefit. So this is directly from genesisworld.com, the about the company section from Phil himself. Please list. Please don't forward this. This is a great little, just this real quick. Family is very important at Genesis. We firmly believe that if we take care of our people, they will do a much better job of taking care of you, our clients. Pretty simple, actually. We have had cribs in the office, tea parties, diaper changes, you name it. Our employees' minds are at ease, and they think much clearer. So family time is very liberal. We have never had a client complain due to the expert on the software being off so he could see his son's soccer game. If the situation is mission critical, that's a different story. There you have it, folks. That right there sums up the type of company that Phil Burks runs. If you remember, one of my favorite stories I mentioned over and over and over, one time Phil was down to the point where he literally was at ground zero, almost broke. He owed the IRS something like $250,000, but he also had a payroll to make. And so therefore he was in this incredibly challenging position of, do I pay the government? Do I pay the IRS? Do I pay my employees? He made his payroll payment. Well, as a result, they garnished 100% of his wife's next paycheck, and she didn't know they were in trouble. So he had to explain to her why this had happened. It's a great story, and it's just one of the many stories that many entrepreneurs go through each and every day, and Phil has lived that. So he's just a wealth of knowledge and wisdom and experience. And so I'm so thrilled to have my friend, my mentor, back to discuss with you how he is navigating with the help of his incredibly capable, just now celebrating his 11th anniversary as president of Genesis, Jim Nip, how they are actually navigating these waters. And it's companies like Genesis that were incredible going into this catastrophe, but they're going to come out even better. And so I just thought, I've got to reach out to Phil. I know he'll have some words of wisdom for the audience, and I hope that you all enjoy once again hearing from our friend, my mentor, Phil Burks, as much as I enjoyed revisiting with him. So with that, be safe, take care of yourself. Remember, this too shall pass, and this is an amazing time to calibrate, look at the life you want, and to start designing it, because let me tell you something, this will end. And when everybody gets back out there, are you going to be further ahead mentally, spiritually, physically, or are you going to let this set you back? The decision is yours. It's not going to be easy. I know it's challenging, but you can come out of this better than whenever this catastrophe began. I hope that you will choose to come out better. Thank you so much for listening to the Texas Titans podcast. I'm so thrilled that you're here. I've been recording interviews for the last 3 weeks, so I've been putting them in the pipeline. I've got some great guests coming to you, so please keep coming back. The Texas Titan podcast, in spite of the coronavirus, rolls on, baby. So thanks for being here. Have a great day. All right. Well, Phil Burks, thank you so much. I just pushed the record, and, your name has probably been mentioned on the Texas Titans podcast more than any other, because I always refer back to when I'm talking about my mentors, I talk about you. When I'm talking about one of the best stories that I've heard on the podcast, I talk about you. There's just you're just a wealth of knowledge and such an incredible leader. So, brother, during these difficult times, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come back on.
Oh, it's my pleasure always. It's actually nice to have some human contact every so often, and I appreciate that. I'm humbled because, God's just put me here for a purpose. I'm not exactly sure what that is every day, but if I can help in any way, that's fantastic.
Well, here's the deal, Phil. I haven't done a show in a couple of weeks as things have just, I mean, right now to ask someone to be on the podcast or whatever, we had to I wanted to see what the landscape looked like.
Sure.
But I was very deliberate in preparing these next few episodes, maybe combining some guests into one episode to reaching out to people like you who I identify as great leaders who I know your worldview and I know just the success you've had, the hurdles you have jumped over to get to where you are, the wisdom you have gathered through the years, and just to offer some hope, some wisdom, and just kind of a take on what it's like having to lead through something that we have never been here before, which is so weird. I mean, we hear there's nothing new under the sun, and there's not. There have been tragedies like this, but within our lifetime, this is a whole new deal. I mean, I'm even hearing veterans of World War II that survived the Great Depression. They're talking about this is worse than anything they've ever dealt with. So it's really really
Sure.
fascinating. So with that, just kind of let's get started on as it relates to Genesis and your family of companies when this all started to come down, you as the steward of your businesses, what do you do? How did it all take shape? And just let's just start there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first off, let me acknowledge that we have a fantastic team here of leaders. And since we're predominantly in software world, we do have some hardware, and we'll talk about that. Because I know a lot of your listeners are going to be on both sides of that coin, as well as public service. Uh, let's talk about the software side. It really wasn't a hard leap for us. We use a thing here called Microsoft Teams, and a lot of companies are starting to learn that Teams can be used for things other than software. But in our software world, our different product teams would use Microsoft Teams. In the weekend before the ramp up really started here in the United States, Microsoft rolled out a new version of Teams that integrated a lot of video chatting, where the different developers that might be sitting on a project team can actually look at each other. They can share screens just with a one click of a button. So it wasn't that big of a leap. Now the big, funny, the biggest leap for us was the fact that some of our people had to they went to their home offices back at home, but they had to learn how they do home office. Several of them came back up to get their extra screens. Some came up to get their chairs because they realized sitting in a kitchen chair for 8 hours ain't all that good.
Right.
And one of the things that some of them have fed back is something I've seen on some other blogs, and that is the fact you find a spot in your house that, and they've done this, find a spot in your house that you call that the office, even if it's a piece of tape on the floor, and you try to find a way to get the kids to understand that when daddy or mommy's in this space, this is office time. I will come out and I will, play with you. I will answer your questions and so forth, but I need to get focused and get some work done. Even my own daughter falls into that category with two teenage boys at home who are now doing schooling. So that was, it wasn't a huge leap from the software side. And now we are operating out of about 50 people. We, in the office today, we may have 6 or 7. It varies on the day and the necessity of things going on. Um, Customer support hadn't even hiccuped because we have an office in London. I think I've told you that before. And their phone, when somebody calls our support number, it rings here, it rings in London, and it rings in Australia, depending on the time of day. So they never know outside of an accent that they're talking to anybody in another part of the world. But those team members all over the world are absolutely up to speed. Um, the the second part is on the hardware side. We, as we've talked about in the last podcast, we're working on our First Eyes solution, which is for drones. And let me go back and say on the Genesis side, our software side of things, we are an essential business. uh, we're right in the crosshairs of what defines that as an essential business. We are supporting our first responders software around the globe, and we need to be, active and moving, and we are. So on the First Eyes side, it is an essential service that's in development, and if we were to slow down, let's say wait till this is over, that'll cost us another 60 or 90 days potentially of slowdown to get this solution out to the world. So as we read it, and I asked for a couple of interpretations from people closer up to the feds, and they said, no, you're absolutely in the throes of essential. So the manufacturing of the bird is going on in Virginia Beach, Virginia. They only have about 3 guys in their shop, so it's not a problem, and they are doing best they can on safe distancing. And our port, or the house that it lives in, is being manufactured in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and they have about 6 people there, and again, practicing social distance. We've made an edict for everybody that if you feel anything other than allergies, stay home.
Right.
We don't want to hurt you. We don't want you to hurt anybody else. That is the number one thing. But we're all trying to flatten the curve while at the same time keeping essential services going on. And I've got some other thoughts, but I'll take a breath here.
Well, and that's all. And it's good that it seems to me like what we're seeing, Phil, is kind of where you guys were, because you're a tech company. You were already there and you're better prepared for it, like you're saying. But what I have seen is that you kind of like the old adage is, the obstacle is the way. We as human beings, we're kind of like I've described it before as water flowing. If there's a big rock in the middle of the river, we just kind of find a way to flow around it. And it's really interesting to see how businesses have reacted and realized, well, we can still move forward with technology and do things that maybe we should have been doing all along, which is kind of crazy.
Now, it's absolutely right, Jason. And I had this conversation. I think I told you I'm working on a book about my life. Not that I'm interested in selling books, and not that I'm
I can't
interested.
wait.
And in fact, the first line says, "I'm not that interesting. I have no idea why you bought this book." uh, but it's God's story, and I just happen to show up. So I was talking to the gal that's working with me on writing this, I said, this, for all the bad that is from this and people dying, nobody wants that. But we are exactly what you just said, Jason. We're learning how to do things differently, because I will guarantee you something. This is not the last time something like this is going
Right.
to happen. We had something different than this after 9/11. We had something different than this with H1N1 and with HIV and others. There were adaptations we all had to make, and I'll take 9/11. And we now all have to go through TSA. Well, it's a matter of fact anymore. But this has caused us to now use the technology that we have here and now that we didn't even have after 9/11, and utilize that to the immense extent that we can. And it got us out of a routine comfort zone to use some new things. My wife being one of them. She's a marriage and family counselor. She is now. And I tell her I used to, love it when she couldn't even spell computer. Not true. Don't tell her I said that. But she was very technophobic. But now she is doing telemedicine. She's found a HIPAA-compliant video chat source, and she can do telemedicine. And she says, "You look at me. You'd be proud of me." I said, "I'm always proud of you, dear." But doing these things gives options then that we weren't forced into using. And you know what I mean by forced.
Yeah.
We weren't pushed into using because we were comfortable in all of our other ways. So this is going to tee us up for the next time something like this happens.
I agree. And I tell you, one of the things that I get really excited about, and the podcast is kind of an example of where we were already heading to, where back in the old days, and I know you have radio in your background. You remember the long journey that it used to take to either get on a local network affiliate in TV, a local affiliate radio, or just a local radio station. It used to be this long process. Now, if I want to get my voice heard, I start a podcast. I go to YouTube. I can do it immediately. And I'm hoping what people realize being forced into these situations is that, wait a minute, I can operate independently, give me a little bit of technology, and I will find my consumer. I will find my client. I will find my customer. And I think that that's what we're going to see more and more of is the individual maker, the individual content creator.
Mm.
Entrepreneurship is going to take a whole new level, take on a whole new level, I think, going forward, which could be a really, really cool thing.
We talked about this the last time we were together, and that is this is called a decentralization,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to use the word of humanity. That we still need human action. I need the hug. I need the handshake. I need all that stuff. There's no
Yep.
question. But the decentralization, same kind of thing happened. And I remember us talking about when the wheel was invented. I read one place where that put 80% out of the workforce out of
Yeah.
work because they were all pushing, these heavy loads. Well, you can choose to do one of two things. You can either keel over and say, "I'm not going to learn this. This is of the devil," and whatever else you want to say, or you can say, "You know what? I need to learn how to do Zoom, Skype." You get on the list of things, and with that, it opens up so many other doors. Um, Even in retail, and I know
Yeah.
you guys are involved in some retail, you're gonna have to figure out, and you will. How do we do this in this kind of a world? Because the next time this comes along, then you're prepared.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that is, and I hate, and I want all of my listeners to understand. I don't want to make, this is a horrible and dark situation, but I'm just wired in such a way that I love finding the challenges in it,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, you mentioned it. Jimlin and I, like I said earlier, she for the last 8.5 years has built a successful retail business that is brick and mortar. I mean, when I showed up, she didn't even have a website, and literally, Phil, by God's grace, our website launched the week this all blew up. And
Wow.
but because she has worked so hard, I mean, through Instagram, she sells more stuff off Instagram, than sometimes on some days than she did under normal circumstances in the store. And so if it means she and I every night at 6 o'clock driving around Tyler making deliveries to folks to keep them safe, to keep us safe, we do it. You just learn to adjust. And so it's almost like I'm having fun watching businesses adjust. But you
Yeah.
mentioned something that I think could be beneficial to the business leaders out there that you're dealing with, in that whether you're tech or not, is that human interaction. Um, how are you keeping your employees engaged just on a social level? Just because, look, hey, we've known all along, but the offices and the commutes and the filler time that we've had throughout our lives have made us feel like we're working 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. But really, when you peel it back, you can get a lot done in 3 hours a day. But we don't want to admit that to ourselves. We got to say we're really busy, right?
Right.
But now we're figuring out, okay, I've got a lot of time. I've got a lot of downtime. So how are you managing your workforce to make sure that they stay engaged, that they stay challenged, and that they are getting that interaction that we as humans do crave and need?
Well, excellent question. And we pride ourselves at Genesis about employee engagement and the corporate culture that we have here. I mean, Jim Nip, who's president of the company, is Mr. Excitement, Mr. Christmas, Mr. Engagement. He is. In fact, I asked him the other day. It was a meme I think I saw on Facebook. We Type A's are not doing well through this
Right.
this crisis. Um, so, and I believe I've heard through the grapevine, and I'm not in the day-to-day operations of the software side, but with the Microsoft Teams that I mentioned, they literally stay on camera, virtually for the whole time they're working. They do take
Yeah.
breaks and they get out. They are still doing their walking that they would do here at Genesis. Individually, we have contests for that. I know I mentioned that the last time. Uh, and, and, and so they still contribute to that. We're not doing the group activities, but they're trying even on the teams meetings that they have. They will call for a time where they just get together and not work, but just chat and just talk about what's going on in their lives, talk about their pets, anything like that. So we keep that engagement. It's just it doesn't have the human hug and so forth that we so much crave. I know at our church, we've also been facing that. I'm in the choir at our church, Green Acres Baptist Church. Tonight, we have a virtual choir meeting. Now, it's not on Zoom, so we're not going to have 300 people singing all different parts at different times. You see it on Facebook and other things, but that's pretty well programmed, and there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes to make that happen. But it's going to be a Facebook Live, and Mike Parks is, and it's internal, where it's not for the external world, but it's to help keep that engagement going with the choir and learn 2 new songs and go through the difficult parts and, and challenge people to, write in questions and come up with ideas and so forth. So it's tough, but we keep trying to come up with creative things. Show us what you and your kids are doing when you are not sitting down at work. Keep us informed. How you're doing as a family.
I love that. That's one of the things. And by the way, I love to see how Brother David, you can tell that he's pivoted and this is not, which is really crazy because David is so, forward thinking and all that, he is like, but this is new to him, but he's really adjusted well. And I'm really thrilled to see what Green Acres has done in light of this to keep the community engaged and together. And again, that's just how there are going to be so many changes outside of this. Now, I will say this. Early in the morning on Sunday mornings before Green Acre services start, I have for years streamed North Point Live from Atlanta, Andy Stanley's church. Okay. So Andy and them, it was already happening. And so they just literally, it's the same as it was before, just he doesn't have the congregation there in the audience. So, right. And now David's doing that and others. From a tech entrepreneur standpoint, what do you see? What opportunities do you see coming from this? I gotta think First Eyes is going to be. It plays into this so much because you literally, that's kind of the idea anyway, to get eyes on a catastrophe or an accident before the first responders can get there to make an assessment. Now it's not just because it can get there early and be the first eyes on site, but now you maintain the social distance necessary. And so I've got to think that a guy like you with a mind like yours is looking at this going, now people are going to be a lot more open probably to business ideas and business plans and technologies they heretofore were not. What are some of those, Phil?
Yeah. So, wow. About 4 things went through my head. Let me try and remember all of them when I pass it back, because hey, I'm over 65 and stuff leaks out of this brain of mine. So on the drones itself, we all hit a setback, unfortunately, when I think it was the mayor of Italy was yelling obscenities from a drone to tell people to break up and go away. So yeah, that hurt us a little bit. But we, I've said many times we want to use our powers for good, not evil. It so happens there are several things happening when it comes to this. The COVID-19 pandemic has pushed people again to do some things that weren't already being done. One is the FAA has some legislation that's been pushed to allow what do they call this? There is a term for it, but basically it's a close-in drone contact waiver where they can fly a drone within a quarter mile of the pilot, below 200 feet or something like this, and they can just do it on an as-needed basis without having to go through the FAA to get permissions and waivers. The idea behind this is so that they can fly a drone in to a suspected COVID-19 situation to either deliver meds untouched or to speak with somebody or to get eyes on a situation before they go in, etc., like this. So that is actually happening. I just had a conversation about it this morning. The FAA is working that through the system right now. Now, this also pushed on the Genesis side. We have a product called Genesis Pulse. And in fact, if your listeners want to go to genesispulse.com, they'll see it, and we're going to be rolling something out. I'm not going to steal all their thunder, but I think it's tomorrow it's going to be announced. that we have added things in for our first responders. This is not for the general public, but it's for our first responders to know better about what's going on in a particular location before they go in there. And I'm just going to pick something like, is this a nursing home? Do they have any reported incidents of X, Y, or Z, whatever X, Y, or Z is? So that before a first responder goes in, they know how to prepare. Do they need to get their PPE gear on before they go in? You get the idea. But that got rolled out. Well, the work on it was started 1 week ago tomorrow. So it should roll out tomorrow. So within 1 week, our teams worked hard to put this feature into our Genesis Pulse. But again, you just hit the website and you'll see it announced properly when it comes out. There were a couple of other things that hit me, and again, like I said, my brain leaks. But that's two pretty good sized ones.
Well, and on the Pulse, okay, that intrigues me. So any densely populated area, I guess, could benefit from it, correct? And so Let me ask you this, Phil: if I'm a consumer and I'm about to walk into a, say, Walmart or a Brookshires or something to that effect, is there a way I could have a quick look at temperature levels of the population of the facility to see, oh wow, a lot of people in this store are bumping around 99 to 100 degree fever. Maybe I don't want, or maybe I want to stay off the sugar and flour aisle because somebody over there has a fever.
No, that's a HIPAA problem, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. I don't think that'll work. I mean, I could see, somebody building a heads-up display with one of those forehead temperature things built into it, so you look at somebody and it tells you their temperature. I don't know, but I still think the HIPAA rules would have problems with some of those things.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things. Like, I'm really into, like, I never wanted an Apple Watch until I got one. And now I am obsessed with monitoring everything. I mean, I have never, and what it's caused me to do, Phil, is I've never had so much fun going to a physical as I did last week. I went to see Hope Short, and I was like, look at my rings, and I was like, okay. I said, okay, so based on my weight and my BMI and everything, is that good? Is that how good is that compared to everybody else my age? They did the breathing test where I blew in there to see the impact of my lungs or whatever. I said, is that better than everybody else? Is that better than most guys that are 45 my age? And so it's like, I think as we look at, I think there will be a lot more devices, just specifically as it relates to monitoring population health, as to see, okay, what's a warning sign if I'm going into area A, B, or C? Is there a way to look at that population through some sort of an air scan? I don't know. That's not my world.
Well, that's the other thing on this particular virus, and I've had people even disagree that it's not really a virus; it's just a collection of RNA, but we'll call it a virus. For this particular one, doing air samples is not. It doesn't work. We have a gas sniffer that we have for our bird. But it's designed to look at the molecular, I can't even say the word, molecular level of the gases, which is way smaller than what this virus is. So we're not able to sniff the air for it. I wish we were, because that would be just ideal. We just fly the bird into a particular area and see what's airborne going on. But, it's probably going to come along at some point.
Yeah. So the last time we talked, Phil, we talked about some of those just, business challenges that entrepreneurs have when they're trying to build their business. They're taking huge risks, and they have to make tough decisions like, oh, I don't know, do I pay my employees or do I pay the IRS? That's one of my favorite stories, by the way, that I've mentioned a number of times throughout the Texas Titans podcast, because it is so real life. You've lived those stories. You're going through this at a much different time. I don't know about you, but and granted, I'm 45. We do have an age difference, but I have never felt, and I want to say this in the right way, because I'm far, far, far short of the wisdom that I want to attain throughout my life. So please don't take this as me saying I'm wise, but I do know, having been an entrepreneur full blown since I was about 28 years old, you look at catastrophes much differently. You handle them much differently. You've got some calluses built around you, right? And so when Jimlyn and I first started going through this process together with our retail business, I told her, I said, this does have a shelf life, and we're going to do some things differently, but we're going to come out on the other side of it. We're going to learn something. We're going to learn some things about our business. There's never a better time to learn the things you don't need to be doing and wasting money on in a business than when you go through these incidences. But so I tend to be able to look at it a lot more objectively and a little more methodically.
Pragmatic.
Right, much more pragmatic. What would you tell? Because this is where my heart really starts to hurt. I mean, I had a guy call me last week that has made an enormous capital investment in a local business. It's retail centered. It's real estate. It's I mean, man, just really in a great economy was taking a risk, and now with 100 employees, doors being forcibly shut, he's saying, all I care about is my employees. I'm going to get through this. And we were just having that conversation. What would you tell that business owner that might be 2 to 3 years in and now their world has been rocked? What advice, what encouragement, how would you kind of just give them a little bit of hope through this if you were to sit down with them?
Yeah. Well, thanks for softballing all the questions to me.
As if you needed a softball.
Jeez. No, it's I hate to be as trite as to say, I've lived through several of these kinds of things, the stories that you referred to, and I'm living proof to say I didn't die. And I know people are dying from this as well as other things going on right now, but I'm still alive. And your employees that you dearly care for, and we do too. I mean, that's the last thing I ever want to lose, and that's the very first thing I want to take care of. I mean, we'll cut out as much as we can to keep our employees going and keeping them paid. It's a difficult kind of thing, but they will live. And you understand
Yeah.
my saying that they will get through it. But my hope would be for any employer to show number one, show grace through the whole thing, show understanding, show compassion, and also show them how to do it. I remember when my mom was dying of cancer, and I had a gal whose mom had passed away not much longer before that. We were talking, comparing notes a little bit, and she said, "Phil, here's your opportunity to show your kids how to do death." And so here is my opportunity to show my employees and my company people how to do business in a tough time. Here's how I can show them that I can remain positive. Am I positive all the time? No. But am I positive with them? Absolutely. 100% of the time. Hope, David Dykes has this acronym for HOPE. It stands for having only positive expectations. If you do the woe is me, and you do and we're going to do this. I mean, understand. Look at the balance of everything. If your balance of your scale is all on the woe is me category, the sky is falling, life is going to fall apart. Guess what? You'll be right. It's going to happen that way. But if your scale is, I have positive expectations, I believe that we're going to come out of this thing, and I'm going to tell you something about bounce here in just a second, but you have just a minor bit of things of worry and concern, you know what? That's okay. We all have pieces of that. I have my moments, but for the most part, I'm a very positive person. Overly so? No, I'm actually pragmatic. I'm realistic, just like you were talking about. I have this belief that, and I've seen this somewhat in the ones that I've been able to live through in my lifetime, not World War II, but my parents certainly did. There's always a bounce afterward. There's an economic bounce. People who get out of the homeostasis of the world, and the homeostasis being the fancy college word for status quo. When the homeostasis goes away, they can't buy, they can't go, they can't do, they can't whatever. When that goes away, there's a vacuum that's created. And then once all that comes back, and it's not an immediate, but it does happen, there is a bounce in economy because people say, you know what, I haven't been able to buy new clothes in 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is. I haven't been able to go to the movies. I haven't been able to fill in the blank. And they have this desire to get back into that
Yeah.
homeostasis of what is the world. And I believe that we're all going to see that kind of thing come back. The stock market, everything, just hold what you
Yeah.
got, best as you can, as long as you can. Uh, I, anyway, that's part of the hope, but that's a real strong belief.
Well, and I couldn't agree more. It's interesting. I just saw a video of Warren Buffett basically echoing those sentiments, and he said, first of all,
He got it from
of
me.
course, of course, I know he calls you. I know he's got you on speed dial, Phil, like we all do. He, one of the things that he said at the end of the interview, the interviewer said, "So you're not selling any of your airline stocks?" And he said, "Heck no." He laughed and, "Heck no, I'm not selling airline stocks."
Oh,
And then I remember in another interview that that he did right after the financial crisis, and he famously said, "I didn't lose anything because I didn't sell anything." You don't lose money until you actually sell. And then, but one of the coolest things that Buffett said in this most recent interview, which by the way, the guy is pushing 90 and is whipping off stats that are just
amazing,
absolutely amazing.
amazing.
But he said, he said, look, he said, this country is all about progress. He said, we don't stop. He said, if you were able to right now to fly an airplane from New York to LA, you would fly over parts of land that just barely over, not even 300 years ago, there was nothing there. There were no cars. There were no houses. There weren't these millions of workers. It wasn't even there. And he goes, that's just three of my lifetime that there was nothing there.
Right.
So nothing has stopped. We are still going to have to progress, it's a simple reminder to me. I once gave a speech back in my real estate days. I guess it was I don't know if it was when I was president of the Association of Realtors or what, but it was during the financial crisis. '08 was my presidency, and it was. I mean, you had a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
realtors that were down in the mouth, and that's a business that you get. It's very transient. People get in. It's tough to make it, and you anyway. And under normal circumstances, and I remember telling a group at a luncheon one day, I said, "Look, the sun came up today.
Isn't it?
As long as that happens, there is work to be done. You just have to go find it."
That's
And
right.
and I think that's what, and that's my encouragement to anyone that's out there right now, to understand that as long as that sun comes up, another day has dawned, and that's another day for you to move forward.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing, similar conversation that we have, you and I both have had with people that have been out of work. And there's a lot of people out of work right now. And a lot of people are going to have the woe is me from that. I get that. I get that. But exactly what I have told a couple of guys that have been in my office who've been out of work. And I said, take it, start the list. You keep hearing about making lists. So make your list of what are my assets? What am I good at? What can I do? And then what am I not good at? And you might come up and find out what you've been doing all your life is not what you're really, really good at,
Amen.
or what you're happy to do. But getting pushed out of your comfort zone with losing a job, having a pandemic, or something like this is going to help you think, well, now's the time where I got to start taking this inventory and think of what could I do. It's the same thing with those guys that were pushing the carts when the wheel was invented. They had to choose, now what do I, hey, I'm actually a woodworker. Maybe I could make these wheels. Maybe I could repair these wheels. Maybe I can improve the wheels. So it's the same kind of thing that's going on right now, just in a different time zone.
That is absolutely perfect. And I just happen to have a copy of a little book right here that our mutual editor sent me an email yesterday and said, what are you doing with push play right now? Because
Mm.
what I discussed in that book, and by no means is my story a story. I'm like you, man. The fact that anybody would want to read it kind of blows me away. But that's not the point. I want to use it as a way to kind of like say, hey, if
Cool.
I did it, anybody can.
You
You
could
can
do
do
it.
it. And one of the things I talk about too, Phil, I mentioned this yesterday. I did an Instagram live from the store. And I told people, I said, a lot of the reasons why you haven't been pursuing your dreams or what you really want to do and have been really honest with yourself is because you got caught up in the trappings of the country club, a certain car, a certain house, a certain neighborhood, your kids doing certain things. And you were kind of embarrassed to give all that up to go, quote unquote, join the circus, but where we'd have to sell some stuff and you wouldn't look as good
Mm,
on the outside for a while.
right,
Now,
right.
don't if ever there were a time you don't have to worry about any of that, it's now because we're all in it. You know,
Everybody's
everybody's
doing
in
it.
it. So if all of a sudden you roll up in a 1995 Hyundai and you and the missus and the kids are piling into a rent house for a little while, but you're taking this opportunity to go when the world kind of resets and comes
Hmm.
back. I'm not going back into the matrix. Instead, I'm going to stay out and I'm going to pursue something more meaningful and more purposeful. That opportunity now exists for folks. And that's my hope and that's my prayer. And the second thing that you touched on, Phil, that I think is so profound. At Hot Tots, we talk to a lot of moms that are homeschooling for the first time. And I remember being the parent of young children that we love our children more than anything on earth, but they can just be frustrating at times. And it's kind of like Ben Franklin used to describe guests that stay too long that had both
Yeah.
both guests that overstay.
Fish and
Yeah,
guests, they start
they
smelling
start
after two
smelling.
days.
But your children, I hope that these parents that are under this immense pressure with the economy and all this and now they're having to be around their children all this time, my encouragement is that they will kind of move into the future and look back on the coronavirus time. They had all that time with their kids, and that when they are my girl's age, which is 19 and 20, getting them home from college, they can look back at that time and go, man, that was an amazing time. I never would have asked for it.
Best
I
time.
never would have designed it. I never would have thought that that's anything that I wanted. But man, it was so special because I guarantee you there's some parents that are going to their rooms and they're punching walls, they're
Yeah.
angry, they're pulling their hair, and the last thing they want to do is go through a third grade math lesson with their child. And my heart goes out to them. But I just want to anybody that's in that situation that's listening to this, I just want to encourage you. I use the analogy. Rylan, my oldest, she used to always come up to me at the end of the day and she said, "Dad, you want to jump?" Which meant, do you want to go jump on the trampoline? I was like, heck no, I do not want to go jump on that trampoline. It's hot. There's mosquitoes. But again, I don't take credit for it because I'm not the most awesome dad in the world. But there was something that God put in my heart that said, get out there on that trampoline because you'll look back and she'll never ask you. There'll come a time she'll never ask you.
I go back to when my dad was in the process of dying. He always said he was never afraid of death. He was afraid of dying,
Mm,
which I was very
mm,
profound because he believed in Jesus as a savior, which he knew where he was going to go. So he was not afraid of dying. It's of the death, but it's just the dying process. I don't like hospitals. I hate
mm-hmm.
hospitals. I did not want to go to a hospital or even in his case, the oh shoot, I just lost the name of it. The final location, the hospice,
Mm,
because it just gives me the creeps. I don't know what it is, but you know what? I did it for my dad, and that was the sweetest time of my life with my
yeah.
father. Was in the last 4 weeks of his life, visiting with him in the afternoons. I wouldn't trade it for the world now. Same way with your kids. You're going through the middle of it right now. It could be hell on
Yeah.
earth, but you know what? You will get on the other side of this, and you're going to go, "Dadgum, that was the best hell I ever went
Yeah.
through," if you want to put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, well, I could not agree more. And a very wise woman named Bobby Burks. Yeah,
Who?
yeah, she's this gal. Y'all ought to get to know each other. I think, yeah, yeah. Maybe you could go ride big trikes together and take cool trips or something.
Okay.
For the listener, that's his wife. Just to be clear, I'm not trying.
Just to be
I'm not
clear.
trying to set him up. It's his wife. She once told me. Uh, there are those mountaintop experiences and we all want them. But if you ever get to the top of a mountain, there's nothing growing up there. Feels good to be there.
Very
Air's
true.
thin, it's beautiful, but the good stuff grows in the valley.
That's
And when
exactly.
you're down in that valley and you're going through it, look around and feel one of the things that, right here beside me, I keep a daily checklist. I've got certain things that amount to a certain amount of points. There's things like, journal, pray and read the Bible, read at least 30 minutes, close my 3 rings on my Apple Watch, all these things. So every day I'm trying to tally up what I've done that day to get to the good stuff. And one of those things that I am praying about right now is, Lord, whatever you want me to learn from this experience, whatever you want us as a nation to, and for those people that are listening to the podcast that are not believers, okay, so be it. You're stuck in a situation. There's something to be learned. Take the time to look around and go, what can I learn from this? How can I be better prepared when this does when we come out of this? And that's kind of my thing right now, man, is it's almost like as a believer and someone who does pray, I'm almost hesitant. I pray for those who are ill to be healed quickly. I want those people, I want their families to have peace. But as it relates to me, Jason Wright, I'm not praying for any expediency. I'm praying for a fertile heart, an open mind, and the education that can only come from, as I believe, my Lord and Savior, to just use this time to be even wiser, stronger, and more disciplined than I've ever been in my life. And
let me explain that to the listener just a little bit. For if again, some may not be believers, as we're talking about here. If you take it to your child, if you tell your child, I really want you to do X, Y, or Z, because it's good for your child, but they start it and then they stop because they say, oh, that's just too hard, or it's just too weird and it hurts me when I do this. But you say, I know it hurts you, but if you will keep doing this, do whatever it is, an exercise or homework or practicing the violin, whatever it is, you keep doing it, you're going to come out on the other side far better than if you just do it and say it's too hard. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir for most everybody that's listening, I'm sure. But you know what? The same way God works with us in our lives, He's saying, look, if you can just hang with me and trust me, you're going to come out on the other side of this, and it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but have that faith to walk with me to the end of this process. Now, I mean, it's seasons that we're going to go through because, like I said, this is going to happen again in some different form or fashion. And it's going to happen multiple times. And if you're going to live till, 70, 80 years old, multiple times in your life, there's going to be these kind of things. But just the way you don't want your child to quit, God doesn't want us to quit through the middle of this.
Amen. Amen. Well, Phil Burks, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it in a time such as this that you would take the time out to visit with me, and I hope that that the audience finds inspiration in this. I know that your life is an inspiration for me. You're an earthly guiding light for me to look to and go, okay, that's and man, look, I mean that with all sincerity. It's not false flattery. You know that you haven't paid me all that well to have you on today.
Not that much,
no. but man, I do. Thank you for taking the time. Please give Bobby my love and Godspeed to Genesis and all the companies that you're running, man. I can't wait to when we get through this to see all the amazing things you guys are going to continue to do. Oh, and happy 11-year anniversary to Jim.
Yeah, 11 years, and we haven't killed each other. It's just amazing. And on the way out, just a quick story, and I'll just make this really brief. And that is that when Jim came, and I might have told this the first go around, but he said, he sends me this email. He says, God's telling me that I'm going to come into work for you. And I said, okay, fine, that's great, wonderful. And he kept pushing on that. He said, no, I'm serious. God's telling me you're coming. And so I said, and I literally said these words. I said, well, then you tell God to tell me that same story, would you? Because I need to know that God's telling me. Well, about a month went by or thereabouts, and then finally an event happened where, bam, I said the only solution is to have Jim Nip here. And now it's been 11 years, and I wouldn't look back because it's been.
That's awesome. Well, good to hear. Well, Phil, thank you, my brother. I love you, and I'm grateful for you.
Love you too, my friend. Take care.
Thanks for listening. Please remember to follow us on Instagram at jasonwrightnow.com and Facebook at jasonwrightTX. All past episodes can be found on iTunes, Spotify, or TexTitans.blog. This has been a Texas Titans media production. Drew Koch, producer.